It feels good to be home. It's an honor to welcome all of us to year 4 of Michigan Mathematics Educators. For those of you who I've yet to have the opportunity to meet, my name is Rusty Anderson. Along with me are my 2 colleagues, Marcus DJ, nice wave, and Andrew Smith in the back of the room by the windows. We will be the facilitators for the conversation this morning and for each of the 5 meetings that we have. We value the sacrifices that you've made to be in the room with us today. We know there is a lot of things that are happening back at home base. We'll encourage all of us to enter the room and join in the excitement. We believe that we have the right people in the room to make a difference for the students that we serve. Know that this morning we are going to spend a lot of time developing our community, positioning ourselves as learners, and gaining clarity in our why. This is all to set us up for success for the year. So know that that is going to be happening. You'll have a lot of opportunities to chat with one another and think about where you currently are in mathematics teaching and learning. We will get to all of the details. However, we didn't want to just sit here and talk at you about the structures of our day and of our year. So we're going to weave that into our conversation throughout the day. So we're not going to get to that now. Know that you'll have opportunities to gain clarity and where you're going to go at specific times throughout the day. We're just not going to tackle that now. For now, we're going to dive into a little bit of our past and take the opportunity to think about how we got to this point. So this is year 4, as we mentioned, and 4 years ago, this group formed. There were approximately 140-ish people in the room, and we centered our conversation around Principles to Actions, which was a new text that is still very relevant for all of us today. We talked about productive beliefs in mathematics and the 8 teaching and learning practices. Year 2 was a little bit bigger, and we focused our conversation around mindset, around formative evaluation, and classroom discourse. We centered the conversation on Joe Bowler's new book at the time, Mathematical Mindsets, another must-have for all of us mathematics educators. And last year, we continued the conversation using visible learning for math. All of our time in the mornings around teacher clarity. We unpacked learning intentions, or learning targets, call them what you wish, success criteria. And we thought about what might it look like for learning intentions and success criteria to weave their way into opening routines and other portions of our math time. That was our focus last year. We will continue that conversation this year, and hopefully you'll see evidence of learning intentions and success criteria throughout our morning, along with having an opportunity to unpack the buckets of teaching and learning mathematics, specifically the teaching mathematics framework. That will be our focus in terms of content this morning. You'll feel that in just a little bit. We'll spend a decent amount of time on mathematical discourse throughout our 5 times together. All of that is what is to come. And we have a purpose. This purpose is for our full year, so it's not only the purpose of our time together this morning. We'll invite you to read the purpose on the screen for the next 14 seconds. Some words to highlight: inclusive, transfer, diverse, serve.
We believe discourse is central to the learning process, and in order to help us have productive discourse, we are going to utilize the norms of collaboration. So I'll pause to allow time for integration of the learning of the norms of collaboration. The purpose of these norms is so we have clarity in how we speak to one another, so we can get to deeper understanding of content. And one of the norms that we believe very highly in is that of paraphrasing. So there are 3 different types of paraphrases. And in just a moment, Rusty and Andrew will have an opportunity to model what paraphrases might sound like. But then after they're modeled, you'll have an opportunity to engage in dialogue with a eye contact partner. So be prepared to share one type of paraphrasing during the inclusion activity. So Rusty, what might an example of the acknowledging paraphrase sound like?
Good morning, everybody. Rusty, I am really excited to be here this morning to see faces of returning members, but also to see new faces in the room. And the energy in the room just feeds us as we're planning for the morning. And we have some ideas of what we want to do this morning, but we're really excited to collect evidence of the current understanding in our room.
It feels great for you to be in the room today. You're welcome.
Rusty, and the purpose of acknowledging paraphrases is that we are acknowledging the affirmation of what was said. We are actively listening and acknowledging that the person has been heard. So what might an organizing paraphrase sound like?
So this morning, we'll spend some time here at Celebration Cinema just creating a collective understanding around professional learning and this teaching framework for mathematics. After we spend some time here, we are then going to get an early opportunity to go to lunch, where then we'll come back to Kent ISD's Educational Services Center building, where we will have some district time before moving into a more focused breakout time where the members of our network will have some autonomy in choosing which area they would like to focus their learning on and around.
We have time as a whole group together to talk about high-level things and time to talk as a district about things that are relevant to us and time in the afternoon to get to actionable strategies in breakouts.
The purpose of organizing paraphrases is really to generalize into the essence of what is being said and put it into buckets. So often when a long story is told, how do we condense that down for the speaker to understand more clearly what those buckets might be in the conversation? And lastly, what might an abstracting paraphrase sound like?
Thinking about our purpose this morning, it's clear that we really value transferring learning from the math network back to our classrooms and the students whom we serve, knowing that we all serve diverse students who have needs, and we are excited to transfer that learning back to them.
You believe all students deserve the right to an opportunity to learn.
The purpose of abstracting paraphrases is really to get down to the core of who the person is. What is their identity? What do they believe? And what do they value? So the purpose of paraphrasing, once again, is to really affirm the person that you're hearing and acknowledge that they have been heard, because active listening is crucial to productive discourse. So for our inclusion activity, you'll have an opportunity to practice these paraphrases. And if the paraphrases are new to you, maybe just pick one type. Maybe acknowledging is where you start. If you feel more comfortable with paraphrasing, maybe listen to the nuances of what's being said and then appropriately apply the paraphrase based on what the speaker said. So for our inclusion activity, we're going to ask for you to reflect around your why. Everything we do has intention. Why are you in the room today? Why are you here? Please take 30 seconds to think about your answer to why are you here in this room today. So in just a moment, I'll ask that you scoot your chair backwards, giving yourself space to stand. And then simply make eye contact with someone, and partner A will share their response to why are you in the room, what is your purpose? Partner B will pause, paraphrase, and then switch roles. We'll come back together in 3 minutes.
And so you're asking yourself, why are they messing with us like this? There are 250 people in the room, and they're making us stand up and move. So one, we know we can do it. And two, it's important for us to build our community. We mentioned that in the beginning, and Andrew's going to unpack it a little bit deeper here in just a second. It's important for us to know one another because we together are a group. And it's important for us to develop us as a group. So that's why we're messing with you like that. Before Andrew jumps in, there are 3 things that we need to say. One, I'm looking at Kelly. She gave me a long story, and I paraphrased it into an organizing paraphrase. 1, books. If you don't have one, no worries. We will order some and get them for you and have them at our next meeting next month. 2, sketches. If you have a form and want to turn it in today, you will be able to do that this afternoon. We'll have a place where you can turn that in. You do not have to turn them in today. You can turn them in during any one of the 5 days. So don't stress about it. Life is good. 3 is there were some people who needed a seat. So if you have an open seat next to you, might you be willing to raise your hand? Okay. Perfect. So we have 3. There are seats up here. Come on up. We won't look at you. We promise. Awesome. Yeah. So prior to us moving forward, we're going to take an opportunity to surface some of the whys that we have in the room. This will give us an opportunity to think about our why, and specifically for those of us who are back for a year 2, a year 3, or a year 4, why are you back? What is your why? So we have a couple of people who were willing or voluntold to share their thoughts. Who might be willing to offer their why? Marcus, will you help? You have a mic. Jason Cornoli?
Yes, it's great to be back. It's an exciting conference. 2 reasons I'm back. The facilitators are amazing. You guys do a great job organizing and giving us time to talk. The way the day's set up, yes, lunch is early, but we've got some time to talk with our district members or our building members, which is fantastic. You don't get that all the time. Last thing is just the tool sets and the opportunity to be able to choose the things that you want to learn about. It's pretty awesome. And you don't get that all the time.
And Molly?
So we came back and have more people from our district joining us this year, which is super exciting. I agree with what Jason said, but also this team of gentlemen, Rusty, Marcus, and Andrew, do such a wonderful job of taking the practices that they wish for us to implement and showing us those in action, which makes it that much easier to transfer it back to our own buildings and our classrooms. And so that combined with the knowledge that we're able to take away and use book learning and facilitate conversations with our staff is just a really powerful experience. So thank you guys.
And we might have time for one more. Might there be one more why in the room? So Marcus, Steph is close to you, so this will work.
I am back at MichME this year because I feel really strongly about making a positive impact on the students that I serve each day, and my hope is that I'm creating an environment where every single student in my classroom feels successful and excited about math. My time here has really shaped my beliefs and my identity as an educator and a learner, and my hope is that I can bring that back to my students and also shape their identities as students and learners and help them feel excited to be a part of the math community. So.
Thank you. It's going to be loud. Marcus has your mic.
So it's important for us to share our why as Marcus, Rusty, and myself. So if you know Marcus, Rusty, and myself, you know that we can be kind of nerdy. We really like data and research. And so there are two pieces of research that really provide our why. First is NERN research, so the National Implementation Research Network. And what they tell us is that the traditional forms of professional development that we here in the United States have done for forever, when it comes to theory and discussion at professional development, that transfers back to our classrooms 0% of the time. 0. With that, if there's coaching in place to support the theory and discussion, that percentage raises from 0% transferability to 95%. Marcus, Rusty, and myself would love to be in every single one of your classrooms every single day. We don't yet have the capacity to do that. It's important for us to build a network of coaches here. So first, we need to do things differently because what we've been doing has not worked. Second, if we take our text, John Hattie and his team came up with 256 indicators of what would lead to student success. Number 1 on that list is collective teacher efficacy. John Hattie defines that as a belief among collective teams that they can transfer their confidence and learning to their students. And what he said feeds that efficacy is seeing it transfer to students in the classroom, evidence, which is why we, 1, want to be different. We want to provide opportunities for professional learning in a community. And 2, we invite you to transfer that learning back to your students and share that evidence with each other. Because we are all here for our students. Knowing that that process of joining 1 and 2 is going to take time, we have learning intentions and success criteria for our time together in the morning. The first is up on the screen. How might we expand our professional learning network? We're going to provide lots of opportunities today for you to talk to people. And as comfortable as it may be to talk to the people who are sitting next to you, you'll know you're successful at this first learning intention if you're able to get up and meet 1 new person in the room. Rusty is going to talk about what our other 2 learning intentions might be.
So we're also going to have an opportunity to dive into some thinking around professional learning. So our learning intention is, in what ways might we engage in professional learning? We're going to take time to do that. We'll know we're successful if we're able to, as individuals, explain the difference between professional development and professional learning. Our next piece of information or conversation that we're going to have is around the teaching framework that I referenced earlier. This is going to serve as an opportunity for us to unpack that for each individual and group in the room. So our learning intention is, in what ways might the framework connect to our current practice? So we're thinking about our current state. And we'll know we're successful if we're able to verbally communicate my group's current state around the framework. So we went from an individual to we're going to be having conversation as a table group around this framework. And we're successful if we can speak to our current state as a table group. These are the 3 big idea goals that we're going to focus on today, and most importantly, provide you opportunities and activities to help you get there. Internally, let's just take a second to think about these 3 goals and what you might say to someone who would walk in the door now who hasn't heard that speech. What might you say to them to summarize these 3 goals, internally and silently? And we're going to meet these goals through our agenda. Our agenda is anchored in places. Andrew will his space next to the one on my right, and I will chat through the one on my left. These two are going to live in the room throughout our time. They provide us a storyline for our time together during this morning block. We have already chatted about the past and the present, where we've been, where we are now, and where we hope to go.
In just a moment, we'll move into the professional learning portion of the agenda, where we, in the room, will create a collective understanding of what does professional learning mean? What might it look and sound like?
Next, we'll have an opportunity to unpack our identity around professional learning as an individual and as a table.
Continuing to work with our table group, we'll unpack this teaching framework for mathematics. So what is it? What might be some of the buckets under it? And what does it look and sound like in our classrooms?
Next, we'll unpack the breakout structures. We have 8 breakout structures that will take some time just to unpack so everybody feels efficacious to know where they're going in the afternoon.
And finally, one that often gets missed in the classroom because of time, we're going to take some time to just reflect on our morning and plan actionable next steps as individuals. And then back at the ISD, we'll be able to make those action steps with our district team.
Throughout our time together this morning, we will have opportunities to continue our learning. That's going to be clear. That is something that we will all focus on. There are also some other things that are happening, and we call these our triple track agenda. So we will have opportunities, and we encourage you to pay attention to and seek out the 3 things that could be happening around you. One is modeling of what it might look and sound like to put some of these practices into a room, whether there's 20 people in your room or 250. And another is a learner experience. You're going to have another opportunity to feel what it's like to be a learner and have these options or things done to you where we're going to be talking, we're going to be working together, we're going to collaborate. That is something you are going to feel. Think about that. And lastly, strategies. So what might be some strategies that we are using that might benefit the students that you have in your classroom, in your building, or in your district? These 3 things we encourage you to pay attention to. All of them are working toward our continual learning as individuals and a group.
So as we move forward into the professional learning portion of our agenda, we're going to focus our intention around in what ways might we engage in professional learning. At the end of this time block, we'll know we're successful if we can tell the difference between professional development and professional learning. So as we engage in this process, we're going to foreshadow that it is a 4-step process. We're not going to give you all of the directions now because there are 250 of you and 3 of us. So we're going to break this down into small increments. So first, we're going to have the opportunity to individually read an excerpt from Intentional Interruption. Intentional interruption will lead us to build collective understanding individually. After we've read intentional interruption, we're going to create a simile to represent the learning that we just embarked upon. Then we will engage in dialogue with a table partner, putting words to those images. You'll see that step 3 will focus on DILTs, and step 4 will work together as a table group. We're going to focus right now on step 1 and step 2. So first, we'll invite you to read and annotate the distinction between professional learning and professional development. That's found on pages 3 and 4 of your goldenrod packet.
Nice.
Next, after you've had the opportunity to read and annotate, we'll invite you to create a simile to represent your learning. So professional learning is like, or professional learning is as blank as blank. Third, and finally, for steps 1 and 2, we'll invite you to engage in dialogue with an elbow partner around what implications might this have for you individually as you embark on these 5 days of learning at the Math Network. Rusty, might you be able to provide an organizational paraphrase for us?
What a great opportunity. We're going to have an opportunity to read. We will create a simile using the stems that are on the screen. And then we will chat with an elbow partner around the implications that might have for us. Andrew, why are we doing this to them?
What a great question, Rusty. It's important for us to have a common and collective understanding of what professional learning is. So we're first going to start internally, having dialogue with ourselves about what implications might this have, and then we'll slowly step out of ourselves and think about what implications that might have for our colleagues, and then we'll step back even further and think about what implications that might have for us and for our students.
Thank you. What questions might we have prior to us reading? Great. Have fun.
Reading. Knowing that during this time our learning intention was to bring further clarity around professional learning, we're wondering if, because Nick is to my right, if he would be willing to share. Nick, what's your current understanding of what professional learning is and what professional development might be?
I'm going to go with my simile. And I think of professional learning as being like a river that's been diverted, right? So your course has changed. Professional learning comes with change, and that change is going to affect or shape something new the way that a river diverted would change and affect the land. Whereas professional development, I don't know, like a paper boat in the river, right? It's just something else that you hit and it just keeps going the course.
We have a choice. We can either hop on the boat and travel down the river, or we can hop on the paper boat and sink and let it be done to us.
For the next portion of our time in this 4-step process that we're going through to get to our success criteria of knowing the difference between professional learning and professional development, we're going to have a chance to unpack our current thinking around professional development utilizing Dilt's nested levels. And we're not going to get too far into the weeds. I'm going to give you just a short, explicit explanation of what these things might mean for us to help us understand how they might fit inside us around professional learning. So, behaviors are those things that we see. You see us doing behaviors. As you look around the room, you see behaviors. They are things that you notice. Now, what we know is that those behaviors are not random. The behaviors that you see in students and adults and individuals in groups, they are coming from things that we have inside us. And those things are our capabilities, the knowledge and skills or mental maps that we have, our beliefs and values, our why, and our identity, who we are in the moment. Those things that are inside us shape our behaviors. In a minute, and through this process, we're going to have a chance to think about professional learning and what we have inside us that's going to help shape our behaviors that we will be able to see. a quick story, and I won't make it too long. As I was driving in this morning, I was listening to a podcast by Tim Wise, and it was random but perfect that he was talking about identity and the role that that plays. And I took a quote from that as I waited to write it down until I got here. But as I was driving in, this was the quote I heard. The way that we conceptualize our role as educators will determine the kind of education we provide. Who we see ourselves as educators determines the behaviors that we have when we're in front of our students. Let's take an opportunity to hear maybe another concrete example of how these buckets might play out in one that's a little bit further away from our arena of education. Andrew, might you be willing to share how these buckets might influence you as a runner? I know you run, so maybe just speak through those for us.
So I like to identify myself as a runner. That is my part of my identity. That's who I am. That's the innermost part of myself. Behaviors that I exhibit because I'm a runner are that I take steps. Sometimes quickly, sometimes not as quickly as I would like. But I have the skills to take steps forward and to continue going even when there's hills or rain or snow. As a runner, I have capabilities. I know that when I'm going uphill, I need to take shorter steps. When I'm going downhill, I know when I need to elongate my stride so that I don't fall. I know that when I see lightning, I need to hurry up so that I don't get stuck in a thunderstorm. I know when it's snowing that I'm probably going to go to the YMCA and run rather than going outside. I'm capable of running in all of those elements and all of those situations. As a runner, I value and believe that running is a very productive, healthy mental choice for myself. I value the time. I value the sweat just pouring out of me with all of the bad things I may have experienced or may be thinking throughout the day. I value the process of running, that some days I go out and it's wonderful, and some days it is just really, really a chore. I believe that runners are a community, so when I see a runner running and I wave hi. When I'm running a race and I'm not feeling great, I've been encouraged because people believe that I can do it. All of those behaviors, capabilities, values, and beliefs occur because I identify myself as a runner. Rusty, why might we be talking about DILTs this morning?
Yeah, why are we messing with you like this? So we know when we approach professional learning, we have decisions to make. Our behaviors will be defined by the things that we have inside us. So what we are going to have the opportunity to do is to surface some of our capabilities, values, and beliefs and identity around professional learning. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to surface that individually and as a group, and then a way to bring us together as a group. This is vital because we're in the room. We have a lot of people from West Michigan in the room, and there are a lot of very important people that we serve. And so it is our duty to reflect on professional learning for ourselves and how we are going to behave as we progress through our time together this year. It might work, Andrew.
So if you were here last year, you remember that I might have broke out into song because we were halfway there. I'm not going to do that this morning.
Dang it.
I'll just say it. So we are on step 3 of our 4-step process in engaging in professional learning. The next step of this process is going to allow us an opportunity to learn a little bit more about DILTs, those buckets that we just saw on the screen. So on pages 5 and 6 in your golden rod packet, you'll see a short description of those buckets, and on the other side, you'll see questions that we might ask ourselves or others within each of those buckets. So we'll allow you an opportunity to engage in reading and annotating that text. Once you're completed, we'll allow you to have dialogue with an elbow partner around the prompts on the screen. So who might you need to be to fully engage in professional learning? And what might you need to believe about yourself and your students to do so? After you've had time to read and engage in dialogue with a partner, we'll invite you to move on to step 4. Step 4 is going to be a table round robin. The person in your table group whose birthday comes next in the calendar year will start, and they will dictate which way around the table you'll go. Every person from your group will have the opportunity to share a value, a belief, or whom they need to be. That's going to occur without crosstalk. So for example, if Mike started, Mike would share his value or belief or who he needs to be. He would then dictate which way he'd like to go, and then we would go all the way around until we get back to Mike. Once we've done that, we're going to invite you to take those shared values and beliefs and create a team poster. So you'll notice that on your table there are 2 pieces of chart paper. The top piece will invite you to create a team name and a team logo to represent your values and beliefs. We're going to invite you to make it large because we're going to hang them up. We'll know that you're ready to move on to the next step in our journey when you take your team logo, which is on your chart paper with your team name, and you hang it on the wall located to your right and Rusty and my left. That will be a sign to us that you are ready to move on. Rusty, are you willing to offer another organizational paraphrase for us?
Yeah, sure I will, Andrew. So we are going to read individually to continue to understand DILTs in those levels. When ready, we will have a chance to chat, first with an elbow partner, and then we will round robin at our table, allowing the ideas to be heard. Finally, we will create a table chart with a name and a logo that represents our beliefs and values as a table around professional learning. Why are we doing that, Andrew?
If we remember our learning intentions and success criteria, the first one was that we would be able to continue to build our professional learning network. That's the theme this morning. We're building a sense of community. Our second learning intention and success criteria had to do with professional learning. What does that mean for us as the Math Network? What questions might we have about this next little bit of read, dialogue, logo creation time? Perfect. Happy reading.
So just as we know with our students, in order to build community, we need to give time and opportunities for dialogue to happen. So hopefully you feel a little bit closer with your table group than you did before in creation of something that might have asked you to be a little bit vulnerable. So in order to help us process this outside of our current small group, we are going to have an opportunity to connect with another eye contact partner. So as opposed to sharing in your group just internally, what we're going to do in a moment is stand up, make eye contact with someone nearby, share the difference between professional learning and professional development as you currently see it, and what is your logo and why might have it been chosen for you. Okay. When you're done, please thank your partner and take a seat. Once again, those prompts include the difference between professional learning and professional development as you currently see it. And secondly, what is your logo and why might have it been chosen? When you're done in 2 minutes, if you could thank your partner and please find your seats, we will move on from there. Thank you.
Something about
Something about a thunderclap and building new relationships has definitely energized our room. So let's leverage that for the rest of our time together. So I appreciate everyone engaging in authentic dialogue with somebody new, and hopefully you've had a chance to already complete your success criteria for community. So as we transition forward, where we're at in our journey, is we have just had an opportunity to explore our success criteria with the difference of professional development and what it means to do professional learning, the permanent change in behavior. As we transition forward, we'll continue to build our community in spaces that are safe but potentially vulnerable. And our last portion of learning for today is relative to the teaching framework for mathematics. So I'll pause for a moment, but please direct your eyes to the front screen or side screen and internalize and process the framework as you currently see it. This framework comes from the National Councils of Teachers of Mathematics and the Taking Action texts. The Taking Action texts from NCTM. And our purpose today is to merge both the framework itself and the buckets within it to our teaching practice to bring further clarity to what we might want to remain mindful of moving forward. So how we are going to engage in this process is we are going to read and create more context around what is this framework? What does it mean? What does it mean to me? Then we'll have an opportunity to individually brainstorm our relationship and connection to it. Where am I at my understanding around the framework? We'll have an opportunity to share with our group once again. And then we are going to synthesize the conversation to represent our current state of understanding relative to the framework and our practice. How we're going to engage in this reading is simply by looking through the lens as a teacher and what students might be doing. So keeping in mind teachers and students, we're going to read pages 7 and 8 in our packet, and it might help you to underline information that is already clear to you, and maybe circle information that you might want more clarity in. So feel free to use both underlines and circles to help clarify your thinking. And then when we are done with that process, please patiently wait for your partner to finish their reading and engage in dialogue using the sentence stems provided on the screens. Andrew, what might be an example of what this could sound like as they engage with their partner?
So an example might be something I know about establishing math goals to focus learning is that it's important for the teacher to have a clear learning intention and success criteria, because when we as the educators have clarity, we're able to pass that clarity on to our students.
Thank you. So we're going to read and annotate, wait for our partner to finish, and then engage in dialogue using the sentence stems provided, and be mindful of cues that will come back together as a full group. What questions might we have about the reading? Perfect. Happy reading. Please thank your partner for your conversation. Andrew, might you be willing to share why we engaged in this process?
Yes. We wanted to allow everybody an opportunity to familiarize themselves with the framework, knowing for a lot of folks it was probably a new diagram. We also wanted to capture individual evidence, so we wanted to allow you time to synthesize that text. And moving forward, we're going to provide you an opportunity to share out with your table group just a list or some ideas, so that Marcus, Rusty, and myself, when planning for the second day of the Math Network, will be able to use your thinking as formative assessments. We're going to use the data that you provide to plan day 2 morning with your content.
So speaking of being flexible and adjusting to the needs of the group, as we move forward, there we go. Rather than utilizing Post-it notes for this process, we ask that you record your thinking and relationship relative to the framework on paper somewhere. So what you'll do is you'll take a moment to individually brainstorm, what do I know about these buckets within the framework? What do I know? And then if you could jot down the bucket and what you know about it, that might be helpful. In addition, maybe you can say, I do this, and this is what it looks like for me to do that process within this bucket. Essentially, we're trying to create understanding of where we at within each bucket, and we're generating a list for ourselves on what that might look like. So what do you know, or what do you do relative to each one of these buckets? We're going to just brainstorm for 60 seconds and let our pens or pencils fly on our paper. 60 seconds to brainstorm the bucket and what you know or do within the bucket. What questions might we have about the next 60 seconds that I will be watching my clock? Yes, thank you. Yep, so thank you. So if we can come back together, the question was, could you clarify what you might mean about the buckets? So each one of these items is identified as a bucket. So it might sound like my bucket would be established math goals to focus learning, and I might write down, I know about writing social learning intentions and success criteria because of my time last year through MichME and integrating that back into my classroom. It might also sound something like, establish math goals to focus learning. I do allow my students an opportunity to turn and talk around the success criteria for the day to close each class. So what do I know or do relative to these 7 buckets? Thank you for that question. Does that clarify? Okay. What other questions might we have?
Marcus, what might I do if I don't know what to write under a bucket?
It's perfectly fine to leave it blank. Perfectly fine to leave it blank. This is, once again, our formative assessment for us, but also an opportunity for you to reflect within these buckets for clarity. And that is perfectly fine wherever you're at. Okay. So I'll be watching my clock. Please look for my cue in 60 seconds for us to brainstorm what we know or do within these framework buckets. Perfect. Wherever you're at, your reflection is just fine. If there are other items you'd like to add to the list, that's fine. We can get to those later. So wherever you're at, your internal dialogue is just fine. So now that we've had an opportunity to process and create understanding of what this framework might be, surface understanding, and how our practice might tie to it, what we'd like to do now is surface our understanding of what we do or what we know with our table groups as well. So how we're going to do that is we are going to share one item, either what we know or do, round robin, without crosstalk. So this might sound something like, for clarifying goals and expectations, I use learning intentions and success criteria so my students know what the purpose of today's activity is. No crosstalk, then we'll just go around clockwise in your group. So we're going to share one item, round robin format, until all of the items are shared. We don't have Post-its, don't place it out there. Okay? So what we're going to do is just listen for synthesis. What are those similar items that I'm saying relative to what my colleagues are saying, and what is that overlap? We are going to go through and exhaust all of our lists. So maybe I only had 3 items. That's perfect. When it comes back to me in the round robin, I'll just say pass and let the next person go until everyone has exhausted their full list. Once we are done with that, we are going to pull those items together and say, you know what, I heard this several times. And then we're going to record it on our chart paper near the identified bucket. So Andrew, might you be able to provide an organizational paraphrase on what the next portion of this will look like?
First, we're going to share out individually what items we may believe fall out of the buckets. Second, we'll be listening while round robining for patterns and trends that are associated within each of the buckets. And last but not least, we'll use that large piece of chart paper on our table to write down patterns and trends by each of the buckets to display publicly as data for our collective group.
So it may look something like this. Here's your whole chart paper. Here's the framework in the center. These will be the topics and ideas that you and your group have synthesized together. So we are going to round robin and share, and then write these items on the chart paper. What other questions might we have? What is circling in your mind, or what questions might exist in this space? Okay. Happy round robining and then synthesizing the conversation on your chart paper. So it may be helpful. Wherever you're at is just fine. Wherever you're at is just fine in this process. So we'll remember that the purpose of this is to create clarity amongst our team and how we merge our practices and the framework together. You may feel like, I haven't got all my practice connected to the framework quite yet, and that's perfectly fine. The other purpose of this was for us to use this as formative assessment. So what we're going to do, once everyone is enjoying their lunch, is we're going to go around and we are going to synthesize the content, saying this is where our group is right now and what might be their needs for the second session and for the third session. So we appreciate the energy and effort that you've put into this work. Know that we will utilize this information and data to drive our instruction moving forward.
And just like all of us in the classroom, we are always short on time. And you feel that now, that we aren't finished with what we were trying to unpack. However, we're going to just put the brakes on. We're exactly where we need to be. We want to make sure to provide us time for clarity in where we're going, and more importantly, an opportunity for us to reflect. So know that just like you have to stop when you're in the middle if a value or belief that we hold is that reflection is really, really important, which is a belief that we hold, which is why our behavior is for us to stop right now and allow us that space. And before we get into our reflection and action, we're going to paint a picture for all of us so that we have clarity in where we're going and what we hope to do. You'll notice that the front page of your packet is an agenda. It looks similar to this. You are currently living in the whole group celebration time, where we have an opportunity to build our community as a whole and reflect on instructional practices from a balcony view. After we end here at 10:45, in about 8-ish minutes probably, you're going to have a chance to go to lunch. And you're going to enjoy that time. It's going to be fantastic. There are a lot of great establishments to go to. Some of them open at 11, but by the time let you in. And this hour of lunch will be on your own. When we are finished, we will start our district dialogue time at 11:45. That is not, for those of us who are new, in this room. That is a really important piece of information.
So you're saying that it's not in this room, Rusty, at 10:45? Or excuse me, 11:45 is not here?
No, I think, thanks, Marcus. It's actually next door, but next door means across the street at the ISD. So when you pull in the entrance off of Knapp, you'll park in the first parking lot on your right. It is parking lot 11. It's the Educational Service Center.
So parking lot 11 at 11:45?
Yes, thank you, Marcus. And 11, you'll remember that because it's a prime number. And on your agenda, you do notice that there are room assignments for each district. So those districts who have large teams, you'll see your district's name on there and the room that you will be in. We are a large group. You may be sharing that room with friends, and that is fantastic. But you do have a space to organize and have conversation. If you are not seeing your district, you will join other friends in the cold water. This is an opportunity for you all to talk about the things and have conversations facilitated that are relevant for you at your building or district.
The purpose of that time is to take our learning, pull it together and say, how do we transfer this to students? We believe that it needs to be intentionally focused and directed on how we can bring that back to the students. So that district time is crucial to our success in transferring our knowledge of professional learning back to our students. If you need help with structuring that or having a vision for that, we'd be happy to have a conversation with you, or maybe be a part of your conversation for a short while as well.
And after district time, there will be a lovely 15-minute break where you can refill your coffee and water. Then attend one of our 8 breakouts. The 8 breakouts and their abstracts, a short summary, and outcomes were emailed to you. You should be able to find them in your email. If you do not have access to them, we'll put some papers at the receptionist's desk that will describe them. The short story of our 8 breakout options are: your feedback matters.
Where are we going?
I was going to read those. With Tracy Hornisky, who's in the room. Hi, Tracy. Stringing it along with Kelly Van Setters and Marcus DJ. Marcus and Kelly are in the room. Ask, don't tell. Aubrey Anderson and Andrew Smith, 2 people who are in the room. What is social justice in mathematics education with Dr. Brandy Lovelady Mitchell. And mathematics communities that include families with Debbie Skidema, who some of you might know. Fractions, an explanation of whole numbers with Kristen Frank, who was one of our facilitators last year from Muskegon. Learning and the visual mathematics for algebraic thinking with Mike Clavon, who's in the room somewhere, along with Jason Gauthier from Allegan. And last but not least, creating a collaborative environment with Jerry Gerway, who's in the room. These options, you have detail around. One important piece for us to point out is at the bottom of the agenda for the breakout, there is a classroom code. That classroom code will enter you when you walk in that breakout to the Google Classroom. Within that Google Classroom, you'll have an opportunity to connect with those who are also in your breakout for the full year. So once you choose, we hope that you will continue there all year long. The purpose of the Google Classroom is to give you an opportunity to connect and provide you an implementation guide, which we're going to unpack really efficiently today. Really efficiently.
And as Andrew mentioned this morning, it's our role to identify ourselves as coaches and support our communities within those that we work. But also we have a digital community to help us grow in between our meetings as well.
Thank you. One of the things that Andrew mentioned this morning was the impact of collective teacher advocacy. And Andrew also mentioned that becomes really, really strong, and we continue to move forward in that when we see evidence that our work is making a difference for students. And so that's one of our purposes for the implementation guide. It's an opportunity for you to capture evidence around something that you're trying so that you might notice some things that are making a difference for your students through actual evidence. We will have opportunities to continue to unpack the implementation guide in future morning conversations. Today, with the implementation guide, we will know that we are successful if we can get into Google Classroom and identify our implementation guide. Last, be able to put an intention on our guide. We are not going to be expecting all of us to leave today and start trying a bunch of things and capturing evidence and putting them in the implementation guide. That's drinking from a fire hose, and we're already doing that today. So we're going to just allow ourselves the opportunity to begin to identify the implementation guide, so that after our second day in October, we'll have a chance to think about what it is that we're going to do and what it is we're going to collect evidence around. So, what this looks like throughout our schedule for the year is today, you are going to set a commitment. What is it that you might commit to thinking about? That's our implementation guide. That's all we're talking about as success for the day. Find it, put a commitment on there. That commitment will be centered around your breakout time. So this is higher level balcony talking about beliefs and values for mathematics education. Our breakouts are intentionally actionable. So we know as educators and humans, We want to talk about beliefs, values around this big picture of mathematics education, and we also need an opportunity to get actionable strategies to take back and try. That's not what we do in the morning for the most part. We talk about the bigger picture in the morning when we're all together. We have our time in the afternoon to identify actionable things for us as individuals and a group to do and try in the afternoon. So you will think about the content from your afternoon time and think about what a commitment might be. And at our next meeting, we'll set an intention. So that intention will be more specific about what is the actual behavior that you will take and try to collect evidence. You'll do that, and in between our meetings, you'll capture evidence, you'll reflect, and you'll receive feedback. And this cycle of coaching will continue for all of us throughout the year. I'm clicking and watching this. I'll get there. And then at the end, we'll have a celebration. Right now, it's not important that you feel like totally clear about implementation guide in Google Classroom. This is not enough time to do that. This was a beginning of unpacking that. So know that we'll continue it. Right where you're at now is where you need to be. Marcus, what might you add to all of that talk?
It comes down to our purpose, right? We talked about why we are here today. So if we take a moment to think about what we responded to ourselves of why are we in the room, what are we hoping to achieve today? These structures are in place to help us be that person that we want to be. So we appreciate your flexibility and your surface understanding of the implementation guide, but we have a very strong focus on actionability for students. So here are some structures at a surface level. Our implementation guides are to help us transfer our why to our students.
And we're going to cruise past this and have an opportunity to reflect. And chances are we have about 1 minute, is my guess, or 0. So we will modify this to still allow us a chance to reflect. And so we're just going to make this up on the fly so we can do it efficiently. Internally and individually, we will reflect around what is it that's swirling around in our brain right now. So we've had a busy morning. We've had a lot of conversation. What is swirling around in our brain right now? And in 30 seconds, we'll have an opportunity to surface 3 things, and then we'll go to lunch. What might be swirling around in your brain right now? That'll do it. And sounds like we are ready to collect 3 from our group. Who might be willing to share something that's swirling around in your brain based on the conversations that we've had this morning? We're looking for 3 individuals who might be able to share with the group. 1, Molly, thank you. Looking for 2 more. 2, thank you. 1 more. 3, thank you. Molly, loud if you could, please.
The tasks that I select for my students determine the work that they do. If I'm not clear with my learning target and my success criteria, my task is different than those things. My students won't engage in discourse if I hand them worksheets. So I need to focus in on what do I want students to do, how do I want them to do it. That's my job. So if they're not doing the right thing, that's my fault. So I'm going to work on that this year.
Thank you. 2.
I just really enjoyed hearing everyone's strategies for the teaching framework for mathematics, and it has my mind going on what are things that I learned that I can implement for my students.
Great. So how might we increase our consciousness of what things I could try that I might not know about yet? Thank you. And 3, Pat.
Something swirling around in my mind is connecting student thinking to mathematical representation and how important that is for efficiency in mathematics.
Great. So our thought, how might we ground that in representation? And what might it look like to do that? We thank you for your time and energy this morning. You're going to have a great lunch, and then we're going to see you back over at that prime number parking lot. Thank you.